Merlin Sports.
Hey everyone, it's Phenomena from Merlin Sports, and joining me once again is DDawg, our resident NFL expert. Say what's
What's up,
up.
man? What's up, man?
Hey, I'm doing well, and today's episode we are going to break down the NFC South and preview the teams and how we think they're going to finish and who's going to come out of the NFC South. So, the NFC South, the teams that make it up are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Atlanta Falcons, Carolina Panthers, and New Orleans Saints. So, who do you like? How do you like this division to shape up, and what do you think? What are you thinking for win loss?
So this is a very interesting division. I think it was same as interesting last year as well. It's like a three horse race in this division for me. Tampa Bay, but I'm going to have to go with Tampa Bay number one. I'm going to go with New Orleans number two, and I'm going with Atlanta number three, and Carolina bringing up the rear. So I'll get Carolina out of the way because they're just garbage. I can't even say anything nice about them, really. I mean, they brought in some talent to help, that maybe kind of helped them a little bit, but this is a bad football team. Their defense was pretty good last year, but overall, they just don't have enough talent. And Bryce Young is going to have another long season in Carolina. So I'll start with Carolina, and I'm going to say their record is going to be like 3-14, maybe 3-14. I'll give them 3 wins. I don't see them winning more than 3 games. And then Tampa Bay, New Orleans, and Atlanta, they're going to shake out. I have Tampa Bay winning, and I said they're going to go 10-7. New Orleans will go 9-8, and Atlanta will go 8-9. But either one of those 3 teams could flip flop and be that way. I'll just go with the fact that I think, Tampa Bay had a good season last year. Looks like Baker Mayfield's found his home. Now, how does he perform with the big contract? That's a good question, but they seem to know what they're doing, and they brought in Randy Gregory from San Francisco. That's going to help them a lot. They did lose Devin White, and Carlton Davis, which are 2 key defensive guys, but I think Todd Bowles will be able to manage him and get him through and to win this division. I only picked New Orleans to finish second, not because I think they're great. And they lost Michael Thomas, but they did bring in Chase Young and Cedric Wilson as a receiver to replace Michael Thomas, and Chase Young, the defensive end. So David Carr is a serviceable quarterback. Of the quarterbacks in this division, I think David Carr is probably the best. He's not great, but I think he's the best. But those 3 teams, I think, are going to battle, and whoever comes out on top will go 10-7. But I think I'll take Tampa Bay to go 10-7.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So, I see things a little bit differently in that I think Atlanta's, based on the improvements they made last year, have them continuing that trajectory and winning the division and actually going 13-4. More about that in a minute. Have Tampa Bay finishing second at 8-9, and then Carolina and New Orleans kind of bringing up the rear, battling it out for for third place. I have both of them with about 4 wins, 4-13. But I agree, Carolina is terrible, and they didn't really improve themselves too much. I guess they're thinking that Bryce Young will not look as bad as he did last year. So, I guess he's looked better in preseason. He looks a little more confident and whatnot. But, they didn't even pick till the 32nd pick in the draft. So it's not like, you finished as one of the worst teams, but you didn't get rewarded with a high draft pick. their first pick was 32nd overall, just because of bad trades that they made. Actually, to get Bryce Young in the first place, they made some very bad trades, and they're paying for it in the draft. I look at who they brought in. It's not very impressive. They brought in like Rashad Penny as running back, who is not really a top tier running back, maybe not even a second tier running back. Deontay Johnson, David Moore, wide receivers, not really. They don't really pop out. They've lost DJ Shark, who is probably one of their best receivers. So it's not going to look too good in Carolina. I don't know where they go from here. If they finish near the bottom of the league again, like they're going to come to the point where it's going to be the third year with Bryce Young. So what are you going to do? Because that rookie contract they're going to have to make a decision on if they want to extend him, or if they totally bottom out, do they start all over again drafting a quarterback? So they might hit that crossroads again. New Orleans, David Carr. Derek Carr, David Carr's brother.
Derek Carr.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I'd like him as quarterback. He didn't have a great year. He kind of struggled. They struggled to protect him, and with quarterback, that's always half the battle, is having enough time in the pocket, and then also the quarterback like getting the ball out quickly as well. So he didn't look all that good. The running game, usually is good with Alvin Kamara, but because of the struggles on the offensive line, he didn't have a great year. They have a new offensive coordinator who's trying to, hopefully solidify the offensive line. They still have Chris Olave as their wide receiver, as their number one option, especially with the departure of Michael Thomas. So they didn't, on offense, they don't look like they've improved that much on offense. Actually, their first pick was a tackle. So, I guess trying to help out that offensive line. And they do look like they made some decent additions on defense. Like they picked up Chase Young, and they picked up Willie Gay. So they look to be that they made a couple good pickups on defense, but I think the offense will struggle. But they're fortunate to be in a division where there's not like, we just went through the last two divisions where you had Philly and Dallas and NFC East, and Detroit and Green Bay and NFC North, where these bottom teams will just get pummeled. But New Orleans has a chance because it's not like a very scary division. No. And then I move on to Tampa Bay. Good for Baker Mayfield that he kind of bet on himself. He went somewhere and proved himself, and he's got rewarded with a contract. But I just think that his ceiling isn't very high. I think he overachieved last year. He may be in for get back down to earth this year, and a couple of reasons why. I look at him. He's not the tallest quarterback, right? So he, you could smother him in the pocket. He doesn't move well, and he's flushed out of the pocket. Now you can't dispute the guy's his will to win, like his mental strength, and maybe that's an underrated attribute in today's game. But he is mentally strong. He totally believes in himself. But I just think the physical he's not as talented in the physical with the physical tools at the quarterback position. And I think in Cleveland, sure, he got them to the playoffs for the first time in a long time, but he just couldn't take it any further, and Cleveland decided to do what they did. I just think he will be kind of brought back down to earth. They didn't really add that much. They added Sterling Shepard. It's actually a pretty decent wide receiver. And they still have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. And I like Todd Bowles as a head coach. It's a new offensive coordinator, so you always have to get used to a new offensive coordinator kind of implementing their flavor of offense. So you have that. And, I have them at around 500, so they'll definitely be a competitive team. I'm not sure they'll knock on the door of a wild card. But I really like Atlanta in this division. And if they only finished 7-10 last year, but they had flashes last year where they looked good. And it came down to their defense was good. That rookie running back, Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts at tight end. So last year you kind of looked at them and thought, like, man, if they just had a quarterback, they would have been 10-7 last year instead of 7-10. And this year, yeah. But it's not only that they added Kirk Cousins, and I disagree with you. I think Kirk Cousins, the statistics, regular season statistics state that he can play at an elite level in the regular season. Last year, before he got hurt, he was leading in yards passing with Minnesota. Like, he's a statistics machine when he's healthy. The thing is that they did a good thing by drafting Michael Penix as well. Like, if for some reason Kirk Cousins falters, or more likely he gets injured, I mean, then the Michael Penix show will start early, right? So that's a good investment, and I'm glad Atlanta has the stones to do that. Like, saying, we just paid this guy, brought this guy in for 4 years. He's the man, Kirk Cousins. Parade him around town, and then you go ahead and you draft Michael Penix 8th overall. It's like, because you look at Green Bay all those years, right? Like, Aaron Rodgers, they couldn't draft a quarterback because they didn't want to offend Aaron Rodgers, and then when they finally drafted Jordan Love, it was like, you to the displeasure of Aaron Rodgers. But I like a team that invests, and also for insurance, right? Like, they don't care about hurting the players' feelings. This is what's best for the team. It's refreshing. Yeah. It's refreshing to see that, and there are. I just think that there's a lot of upside. The defense was great last year. Bijan Robinson was great last year. So, they got Drake London as well. I said Kyle Pitts is also wide receiver Drake London. So,
they have some players, and their defense. I agree with you. Their defense was really good last year. Kirk Cousins is coming off an Achilles, isn't he? He's coming off a major injury, right? So that's the other thing. You don't know what you're gonna get from him coming off that major injury.
Yes, but right? I think he took his time. He took his time, and he sat out the whole year, and you didn't hear any of this nonsense that you heard with Aaron Rodgers. Oh, I'm going to come back in week 13, and no. Kirk Cousins just kept his mouth shut and prioritized, healing himself. Yeah, Achilles is bad. But the thing is Kirk Cousins, he's a pure pocket passer. So it's not like it's a guy like Justin Fields that relies on improvisation and running for his life out of the pocket. Like Kirk Cousins, he's a pocket quarterback. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think like that Atlanta, especially being in a weak division, will benefit from injection of Kirk Cousins and then as well as those young players that really shone last year. I think that there's more upside. I look at they get to play Carolina twice. They get to play New Orleans twice. Even if they split with Tampa Bay, right? Looking at they play the NFC West, which is okay. So they'll play KC. They'll probably lose to KC, but that means they get a game against Denver, Las Vegas, and the Chargers. Right? They also play the NFC East, which means that after Philly and Dallas, maybe they split Philly and Dallas, but they play the Giants and they play the Commanders, right? So their schedule is pretty favorable. Tampa Bay, on the other hand, some of their out of market games. So it's a lot of teams that like they also play the NFC East, so they will have Washington and the Giants, but they also play Detroit. In Detroit, they play Baltimore, so they drew Baltimore. They play San Francisco.
Yeah,
so those are 3 tough games. So I just have Atlanta. I just give the edge to Atlanta. I think, Kirk Cousins will work good. Raheem Morris, he's a head coach, first-year head coach in Atlanta. So they this is kind of for a team that wasn't really that bad last year. They really cleaned house. The head coach, they brought in a new head coach, a new offensive coordinator, and new defensive coordinator. So,
that was an interesting move last year by them doing that, and that's what I said too. Part of that is that's continuity there hurts, and you kind of give a different impression for the team coming back. Is like, wait a second, you fired the guy, and we were pretty good, and you weren't happy with our quarterback, right? So that's the only thing. Like I said, this division is really to me a 3-horse race, and then you have Carolina bringing up the rear. So, but I don't see any one of these 3 teams like having earth-shattering records.
Mm-hmm. Okay, which coach you think is on the hot seat in this division, or the most pressure?
I gotta think Todd Bowles is. I think he's the guy with the most pressure on it. I mean, he took over. You gotta keep in mind he took over for a Super Bowl winning team. Now they did lose Tom Brady, right? But they haven't been that successful. They had a decent year last year and got Baker Mayfield got a new contract, but that's where I see that difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. I mean, it could be. I mean, if they really have a bad year, but if they hover around 500, I don't know. Maybe I tend to think Todd Bowles might be safe, or I think Dennis Allen in New Orleans. He's headed into his 3rd year. If they have a bad year, maybe they look to make a change just because, they've changed the quarterback. And they've, I don't know. I just think that there perhaps could be more pressure on him if they have a stinker, which I'm thinking which I'm kind of predicting that they'll have a bit of a stinker year. So,
yeah,
okay.
I mean if that happens, yeah, definitely Dennis Allen would be on the hot seat. I don't think that. I mean, Dave Canals in Carolina. I think if they fire him, you know, it's like they set him up for failure because he's got no help.
Yeah, it's
His
kind of
team is
hard.
garbage.
Yeah, especially like for a first year head coach, it's kind of hard to move off of them after 1 year because then, it's like it turns into a turnstile. And then also, like, as we mentioned, they had the 32nd pick overall. It's just like, how can you blame the coach for this roster?
Yeah,
you'd almost have to you have to go above like that to GM level because what are they thinking? It all started with moving up in the draft to get Bryce Young. I think they gave up DJ Moore, who's really found a nice home in Chicago, and okay, so you move up, you get the number one quarterback in that year's draft, but you don't surround him with anything, right? Like that's not the head coach, that's the GM. So but anyways, okay, so you have Tampa Bay win the division and I have Atlanta. So let's see how it plays out. It's definitely
this will be an interesting division
interesting
for the wrong
Yeah.
reasons, but definitely.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's move on from this division